I might not be doing death battle videos as often anymore, but I'll still want to talk about the show every once in a while if I can find a topic I'm interested in. I presented a poll to you all a while back with 2 top 10 lists that I had in mind, and the transformations one had a lot more interest shown for it than the cutaway gags, which works for me because I think that provides me a lot more interesting things to talk about. So today I'll talk about my favourite transformation scenes in death battle, as of Ghost Rider vs Spawn anyway, which is the most recent episode as I'm recording this intro. The video definitely won't be out until after Shigaraki vs Mahito drops, but that shouldn't change anything since as far as I'm aware they aren't characters who transform anyway. The show generally utilises transformations pretty well. They're helpful for escalating a fight, helping a losing combatant out of a corner, or generally just being really cool sequences that stand out as highlights of their episodes. And while I don't want to waste your time explaining what the definition of a transformation is, part of me also feels like I should clarify where I draw the line for what I'm counting for this. Do actual transformers count? What about general shapeshifting that doesn't really alter the flow of the fight? Do they need to be natural abilities, or can they be temporary buffing items like Mario's power-ups? That's partly why I'm limiting this to a top 10 instead of ranking every single one in the series. Beyond the fact that I don't want another feature-length epic on my hands, I just have no idea how I would define what qualifies. As much as I'd like to give you some arbitrary set of rules about how it needs to change a character's appearance or give them a power boost or whatever else, ultimately I decided that it would be a case-by-case basis, and that if I needed to question whether I drew a line on something, odds are it wouldn't have had much of a shot at making it into the top 10 anyway. Some potentially controversial exceptions though are that I've decided Endosim Iron Man and Last Breath TJ combo are ineligible. You can argue whether or not they should count, but given that they would be easy contenders for the top 5 and I've glazed them plenty of times in the past, the fact I'm on the fence about them told me it would probably be more interesting to give the spotlight to some other scenes instead. As for the criteria, it's as simple as how much do I like the transformation and how does it contribute to its overall scene and episodes. Typically that means some combination of a lead up justifying the character to push themselves farther, a cool entrance shot to show off their new look, and a strong first impression of what the character does in the new form. Is it cool or not? That's really all there is to it. The only hard rule I want to stick to is 1 per episode, and you'll see why that is later on. There are obviously more than 10 great transformations in the show, so just before the number 1 pick, I'll throw in some honourable mentions as well, because it is likely that I won't mention all of your favourites. Alright, let's get this countdown started.
Open the gates!
It's sort of difficult to separate Night Guy from the really pitiful kicking kaboom he does as his only attack, which speaks to how well everything else is done that it's still managed to make its way onto this list. It's aided a lot by how perfectly paced the rest of the fight is, going from an arm wrestle to a casual spar to both throwing out their strongest moves to push the other to their limit. The United States smash leading into it has a ton of impact, and the fact that Guy is still able to move and talk after it makes All Might drop his smile, not out of strain like before, but because he's just that taken aback by the fact that Guy seemingly still has a second wind within him even after having a hole punched through his chest. The explosion as Guy activates the 8th gate and pushes All Might off of him feels pretty meaty too, which is more thanks to the music than anything else. There are many reasons that Mighty is my favourite death battle track of all time. I've talked about that in a previous video, cough cough. And one near the top of that list is how it aids its ending more than perhaps any other original song in this series, with only Super and Game Over contesting it. The gentle wind down after the United States smash and the brief pause as Guy says to never give up, then exploding back in with a guitar solo to give the 8th gate transformation that extra bit of oomph is just phenomenal. Plus, after how upbeat and inspirational the lyrics have been for the rest of the fight, having them cut out of the ending completely and allowing the guitar shredding to take center stage does wonders for setting this more serious tone and making Night Guy feel so much more dangerous. Guy's hands coursing with so much raw energy that it melts through the ground, followed by the shot of the dragon appearing is sick as fuck. I love the split screen and face-to-face shot leading up to the final clash. I love even more that All Might sees his new friend is giving everything he has for one last push and does the same as his smile returns. And I guess even if the killing blow itself is kind of puny, it does technically mean that the one attack Night Guy sends out immediately kills All Might and wins the battle, so I guess I can give it somewhat of a pass there. Something something splendid, something something plus ultra, really good scene.
Goku! Forza! Super!
Dragon Ball has had many appearances on Death Battle, and many more transformations given that a lot of these characters have several. Many great options to pick from, so it surprised me that only one of them made the cut onto this list, from their very first episode no less. I'm aware that many people prefer the 2023 Goku vs Superman to both previous versions, which I can definitely understand since it's running circles around the others with its character writing and visual fidelity. For me though, the 2013 classic excels so much thanks to the increased runtime allowing for more to happen, more more variance in the tones of each scene without needing to rely on one music track, and both of those aspects play to what is to this day one of my favorite scenes in any Dragon Ball death battle: Goku's transformation into Super Saiyan 4. Throughout the rest of this fight, Superman's never in any real danger whenever Kryptonite isn't around. Goku's the one playing catch up as Superman gradually stops holding back, eventually doing so at a faster rate than Goku and turning the tables very quickly on Super Saiyan 3. This leaves the fourth form as the final do or die trump card, with everything prior serving as fantastic build up for the moment where Goku finally brings out his full power. The different music tracks used for this fight are another great benefit, allowing for this scene to be far more intense with the music building the tension up, contrasting the more relatively upbeat and fun tone it started off with. The visuals sell it too, with Superman's massive heat beam being interrupted by a burst of power as reality distorts around them, coating the sunny valley with a storm so thick you wouldn't be able to tell it was daytime. Obviously the actual reveal of the form isn't the prettiest thing ever, but in the moment I don't even register that because it's still so exciting to get to the last act of arguably the most important episode of the show. Both fighters raise up for the final round, starting off slow with tension you could cut with a knife before building up to a shot that is yet to be topped in terms of conveying the fighter's blistering speed. A showdown where Goku is the one to come out on top and truly put Superman on the back foot for the first time to the point where he has to immediately retreat to get closer to the sun. As amazing as Ultra Instinct in the rematch is, the differences in how these forms need to be treated and the structures of both episodes lend themselves just a bit better towards making Super Saiyan 4 the one that sticks with me just slightly more. Crude visuals by modern standards be damned, Goku vs Superman 1 is the episode that to this day most feels like an event, and this scene is one of its star attractions. It remains my favourite transformation that a Dragon Ball character has ever had on Death Battle. Not my favourite one in any Dragon Ball episode though, that's for later on.
I wish I could see.
Hailing from the only episode on this list where I have no first-hand experience with either character's source material, Sauron's transformation into his big flaming eyeball form from the Lord of the Rings films goes about as hard and feels about as impactful as the rest of the fight, which is to say it's on a level most other episodes wish they could reach. This episode generally has some of my favourite dialogue and line reads across all of Death Battle, and it's no different here. The Lich King has the same booming aggression and confidence he'd already been demonstrating as he gains the upper hand. Philip Sacramento crushes his performance as Arthas impales Sauron and tells him that he's now under his command. Sauron's response is a very simple line on paper, but this is where the delivery really sells it. Ryan Solis had done an amazing job making him sound every bit as stoic and unflappable as he was slimy and evil. Not once did he ever feel like he gave a damn about Arthas as anything other than an inconvenience to get over and done with so he could take the throne that he deemed already belonged to him. This is where that all changes. Hearing that this mortal man has the fucking gall to dare suggest himself as any kind of authority over Sauron pisses him right off. But he's in no position to do anything about it. I mean, what can he do when his body's been cursed, weakened, and impaled? Why, discard it entirely to become a big ball of fire, then send out an entirely new body to shatter Frostmourne in a single swing, of course. It gets across the danger that Sauron poses, especially when he deems someone as enough of a threat to warrant his full strength. All of this is without even mentioning the obvious plus side of the visuals and music. If there's one thing this episode gets right, it's making everything feel weighty and massive in scale. Even if this isn't visually as huge as the mountain eruption, Sauron's big eye still feels incredibly overbearing with how we see the blindingly bright orange orb tower over Arthas as One King to rule them all shifts back into its glorious chanting. This also gets to serve as a great moment for Arthas, as he responds to Sauron taunting him with a projection of another Lich King armor by bringing out the Eye of Icarus to mirror the shot and then telling Sauron that he's full of shit. Orange and blue are my two favourite colours, and the contrast between them here is stunning. Quite possibly the prettiest looking shot in any 3D death battle as far as I'm concerned. It's a scene indicative of how good this entire episode is, because every time I go back and rewatch it, I think to myself, wait, is this actually my favourite of the season? I'm still sticking with SpongeBob vs Aquaman for now, but who knows how that might change later down the line. Man, I gotta watch and read Lord of the Rings someday. I'm good on Warcraft though, I don't have 1,000 hours to spare.
Let's just say I'm the boss.
You know what makes Tetsuo's evolution into the big mutant baby so standout to me? The fact that the first thing that happens with it isn't a display of its awesome power or something that makes it seem like a huge threat to Magneto. I mean, that does happen not too long after, but the first thing that gets established is how much of a threat the form poses to Tetsuo. With Magneto's helmet knocked off, he no longer has that shield from telepathic attacks, so the kid's stream of conscious is immediately able to overwhelm him with several thoughts thoughts overlapping at once. That results in welcome to die being referenced really naturally, since welcome to and die are clearly from unrelated sentences, and you'd struggle to hear the former amongst all the chaos unless you're actively listening for it. Buried among it all though, Magneto is able to hear Tetsuo's cry for help to free him from the pain he's feeling. This changes the entire rest of the battle. It's no longer Magneto fighting for his own survival after this piece of shit kid attacked him, but seeking to help end this poor child's suffering where his very existence causes him pain and puts his life at constant risk. The character writing and storytelling are what let this episode stand out as much as it does, which this scene displays some of the best of. Of course, it also has incredible build up to that scene. Tetsuo's mutations exploding out of him, which are even more detailed than I remember, the silhouette towering over Magneto, the hand-drawn close-ups, the gross squelchy sounds accompanying every pulsating part of Tetsuo's fucked up body. It's every bit as imposing and disgusting as I wanted. A particular favourite part of mine has always been Magneto being unable to do anything but look up in horror at what's unfolding in front of his soon-to-be visible eyes, as Ego Death's chanting reaches its most intense. The only part that doesn't win me over as overwhelmingly is the full reveal shot. It's really good, don't get me wrong, the hand-drawn stuff is great, but I don't think the shot conveys the size as well as it maybe could have. Insane to say when the bastard's like 3 stories tall here, but I think the fact that it's a direct face-on shot where Tetsuo barely takes up any space in the top third of the screen doesn't do it many favours. Like I said though, still a good shot that's just the weakest part of one of the best sequences of its season. That baby really was boss.
It's Slender Man!
Kill you!
It has been over 5 years, and the reveal shot of Unknown Percent Mob I still think holds up as quite possibly the best looking hand-run shot in a Sprite episode. Or at least a strong contender, since I don't remember all the competition it has off the top of my head. The build up with Mob getting crushed is pretty well done. I hear the critique that it's not entirely clear he was knocked out, I get that, but I think there's enough there to convey it without needing to see it. His barriers were able to stop the 2 city block casts from fully coming together. As soon as they make that one last movement, you can infer that he got overwhelmed and gave out. That is the last we really see of Mob, because this form is not him. He's no longer the passive and shy kid, or even the one that was angrily beating Tatsu's shit in. All that remains is his inner power left to run rampant without his consciousness able to hold it back. There's no one-liner, boastful taunt, or even a warning for Tatsumaki to run. We're not getting any lines from Chong-Yun for the rest of this. It's a completely silent killer on a mission to take down the brat that was stupid enough to pick a fight. The rough, constantly moving, sketchy line work coupled with the glowing white eyes and blank expression make this shot look absolutely haunting, with a staticky background noise that builds as if it's screaming at you. The cutting of the music and the amazing impact frame do so good to sell the danger and power of the form, even though all it's really done is raise its head upright. And the beatdown it lays out on Tatsumaki as it levitates parts of the ruined city around them make it out to be a force to be reckoned with, to the point where Tatsu has to call down a meteor from space to stop herself from getting pretzels. Considering Mob vs Tatsu was my most wanted matchup at the time, I'm so glad the episode we got was able to deliver a sequence as chilling and exciting as this. And as the cherry on top, the rest of the episode turned out pretty great too. The scene has started to remind me of Slender Man as well. Do you think Mob's gonna give me the slender sickness? That's scarier than any building you could throw at me.
No! The Satsui no Hado is
One of the most common transformations on the show is with the Street Fighter cast tapping into the Satsui no Hado. Out of all of them, who did it best? Well, I think it's safe to say it's not Akuma. The start to the Oni transformation is the hypest part of his fight for sure, but the emphasis on the word mine makes his otherwise fantastic line read a bit unintentionally funny to me. The actual change looks really lame, and I don't like how quickly Akuma succumbs to the Dark Hado after mastering it. Plus, come on, look at him. Both have reused descents into Evil Ryu pretty easily outclassed in my opinion. So am I going with a raw as fuck shattering of the sword on contact against Scorpion, setting up for the tables turning later? Or do I go with the awesome chanting accompanying his slower entrance against Jin before the Hadoken onslaught? Eeny, meeny, Dan Hibiki. No, I'm not gassing you. I genuinely think that Dan tapping into the Satsui no Hado is one of the greatest sequences of its season, and by far the best use of this form in the show. With Dan at a disadvantage both in the fight and with the favour of the crowd, it makes sense that this would be his breaking point emotionally. And when he achieves the power of the form, it actually makes him look kind of cool. It's obviously not as flashy as modern seasons, but the darkened background and glowy eyes to set the atmosphere, the intense music, and Brad Venable's flawless delivery on that for my father line managed to make Dan fucking Hibiki, one of the intentionally lamest characters Death Battle has ever used, come across as an intimidating threat in this context. Hercule actually has no way around this. So it's good that he lucks out and Dan trips over the jetpack. Both a fun callback to how he immediately got folded by tripping the one time he used the form in canon, and one final hilarious payoff for the jetpack, which is only in the spot it's in because Dan failed to use it properly in the first place. After its one cool moment, the form accomplishes absolutely nothing, it's immediately undercut, and Dan loses the fight pretty much right after, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Hercule vs. Dan is the master of taking things that would normally be flaws for other episodes and making them play into its comedic strengths, with this scene in particular being one of my favourite jokes in the whole show.
Fuck yeah, World Breaker! He turned on Guilty Gear!
It baffles me that Hulk is going to be one of our 3-time combatants soon, because his first episode is so good that I frankly never felt like I needed to see him again afterwards, especially since his run back against Broly did not stack up to that first outing. As much as I enjoy the fight, the one thing it really lacks is impact, and if we're looking for impact, we need look no further than Hulk vs. Doomsday, particularly the World Breaker Hulk transformation. After Doomsday punches Hulk's thunderclap and levels the building they were both in, they take a slight breather. Doomsday walks away having spent a lot of his energy, and Hulk emerges from the rubble having now taken some serious damage. This is the calm before the storm, as Hulk is now at the peak of his anger. He takes a step, gamma energy now overflowing and surging out of him as the music kicks in, and he declares that while Doomsday can break buildings, Hulk can break worlds. It's a perfect line to lead into the World Breaker form, with an equally flawless delivery from Parker Bohan. And the stomp that sets it off is a great reference to the one that sent shockwaves across New York when he first accessed the form in the World War Hulk story. See, I know a few comic things. The punch clash they have is so cool. You might be initially taken back by how this explosion covers the screen and then all of a sudden the city is in ruins. That's because of this shot. The framing isn't super clear on first viewing, but eventually you realize, oh shit, that was a zoom out to show the planet from space. They just punched and made an explosion the size of a country. I really like how this sells Hulk's overwhelming power as well. Remember, the conclusion states that, while not to the level of completely leaving Doomsday in the dust, Hulk does still hold the strength advantage. So Doomsday ends up on the losing end of the punch clash, and is unable to do much to Hulk with brute force in the wake of the new power-up before getting beaten down and visibly injured for the first time, needing to use his adaptation to find a new way around this disadvantage. For a fight focused on hype and spectacle first and foremost, it's really smart writing that conveys the points of their conclusion very well, all facilitated by this amazing transformation. Oh yeah, I haven't even mentioned how Guilty Gear Sky Should Be High blaring over this is one of the best uses of music in any death battle. What Divine Identity was for tension building, Sky Should Be High excels to almost an equal level for pulse-pounding excitement. I can't think of much higher praise than that. Fuck yeah, World Breaker, he turned on Guilty Gear.
And Dracula will shit himself.
So some of you may have noticed and been entirely unsurprised at how I have not yet mentioned Ganon vs. Dracula. One of my all-time favourite episodes thanks to its incredible aesthetics and constant kick-ass moments, including what I think I've previously heralded as not just my favourite scene in its fight, but my favourite transformation in the whole show, Beast Ganon. And yeah, this is a real highlight. Ganon getting burned alive only to turn into his big pig mode and use that fire as a backdrop to make himself look intimidating in a way that even surprises Dracula is awesome, as is the big monster fight that follows it. Such a phenomenal sequence that is not on this list. Don't worry, the fake out here isn't that I think his pitiful transformation against Bowser is somehow better, because objectively it isn't. No, we're not switching to a different episode here. Ganon vs. Dracula still holds this spot on the list, but my favourite scene in it has been staring me in the face for the last half-decade and I somehow never noticed. Dracula's transformation into whatever the fuck this is called is a scene that I've always loved, but only now after a lot of reflection would I call it my favourite scene in its animation. As much as the music enhances how cool it is to see Ganon emerge from that fire, I think it works even better for the more ominous atmosphere leading up to Dracula bursting out from his own decapitated corpse. That's another thing actually. The twitching on Dracula's severed head and remaining floating body while Ganon thinks he's won are so creepy, further adding to him having some of my favourite character animation in the series. And boy does he get across that he's taking things seriously now that Ganon has done some actual visible damage, instantly backhanding him across the room and absolutely demolishing him while he's still getting his bearings back. but he still has those showings of his sadistic personality, letting his head fall to give Ganon a false sense of security, then giving up his element of surprise anyway by laughing just to fuck with him. This is the turning point in the fight where both start really going for it. Dracula realizes that Ganon is a genuine threat, and so stops posturing as much to take the fight more seriously, which puts Ganon on the back foot so badly that he needs to break out the big guns immediately. I think I might have previously preferred Ganon's transformation because of the sheer awe and spectacle of this shot, but like, fucking look at this, man. Dracula landing and towering over Ganon before he then stands up is a great way to show off his now more imposing size. Ganon still stands his ground with some great posing, and the lighting from both the moon in the background and Dracula's glowing red eyes are simply stunning. It all makes for such a striking visual, one of my favourite shots in any death battle. His despair line is also much shorter, sweeter and to the point than Ganon's, while doubling as a reference if I'm not mistaken. Ganon also had a shot of this list, but hey, one per episode. I don't make the rules, I just come up with them and then choose to abide by them whenever it suits me.
Talk about Scooby-Doo meets Fight Club.
Man, what did we do to deserve an episode as good as Scooby vs. Courage? It's just not fair to all the ones that came after that this is what they have to live up to. Every single bit of this animation is off the wall in the best way, and yet even the Jablinski Triangle reaching out of the universe to blind Wiz and Boomstick is only the second most batshit insane thing that happens in it. Most of the cartoony shenanigans on display here can be tied back to some form of reference to the source material, and despite the characters' absurd stats in a versus sense, it still remains relatively grounded in scale for the most part. Then we get hit with whatever the fuck this is, and it's like, where the hell did this come from? There is absolutely zero precedent for this happening, and that's why it works so damn well. Why shouldn't Scooby combining the power boost from all his snacks turn him into a celestial muscular behemoth? Why shouldn't Billy Ringmaster's delivery of Scooby-Dooby-Doo be given enough filters and distortion to make it simultaneously one of the funniest and rawest lines of its season? This episode already far outclasses Kratos vs. Azura in literally every other conceivable category I can think of, so why shouldn't it also have the best Azura's Wrath moment on Death Battle by a long shot? I feel like I've already heaped a ton of praise on this sequence every time I've talked about the episode in the past, and can you blame me? It's peak. But what I haven't given enough praise to is the build up to it. Courage digging through the box pile to find the dark matter meteor as we hear Scooby gulping and munching away in the background. His giggle that morphs into full demonic laughter accompanying this shot here is genuinely on par with Slenderman Mob, except with the added inherent comedy of it all. The Chad James joke is one of my all-time favourites for the show, and the shots of Scooby rising out of the boxes are so unnecessarily raw. A detail that I really like is that alongside all the Scooby snacks, Scoobert takes the God Bone, you know, the thing that's supposed to be everlasting that makes dogs uncontrollably snack on it until they die, and scoffs it all in a oneer. It's not even focused on, and yet I struggle to think of a bigger power move in all of Season 10. Now, I do think the Evil Dan transformation might be ever so slightly funnier because of the anticlimax. So why does this rank a few spots above it then? Fucking look at it! Look at Scooby, look at his fucking ripped physique. Dan vs. Hercule looks good for the time, but it cannot compete with the hand-drawn perfection of Luis at the top of his game. The sound design has the perfect amount of impact, the music changes tones at the perfect time, and even though the form doesn't amount to anything, that isn't anywhere near a downside. Scooby punching through the planet would have been kinda boring as an outcome. Courage firing back with the single best scream in Death Battle to stop the fist, shatters Scooby back to normal, who falls back down to earth and takes both of them out of the fight. Now that's a perfect way to start winding down after how balls to the wall crazy the last 30 seconds had been. Unfortunately though, it seems that no matter how peak Scooby vs. Courage is, it's always destined to be the bridesmaid to whatever my favourite episode of the show happens to be at the time. Because, to the shock of you all, I'm sure, the top two spots are taken up by my two favourite episodes that had something I thought qualified for the list. I don't count anything in Bill vs. Discord or Saitama vs. Popeye, so no, I didn't forget them. Rancid 3D Popeye was unfortunately not eligible. I have come around to finding him funny though. I owe him an apology, I was not familiar with his game. Before we get to that top spot, the selection of episodes represented on this list has not been as varied in quality as I was hoping. When I ranked the music tracks, there were plenty of episodes I thought were good or great, but not exceptional to get their tracks to place near the top. And even some episodes I outright did not like got really high up there. This list here has mostly been a greatest hits of some of my favourite death battles in general, with the sole exception of Might Squared, which isn't much of a weak like Link, it's barely even a step down. Well, good thing I've got a list of honourable mentions here that can shine more of a light on highlights within some less standout episodes to me, plus some of my other all-time favourites that just didn't make the cut because the competition was that tight. So let's quickly speed through some of these in chronological order. Super Saiyan 1 is a form that doesn't have the same relevance it once did, but Goku's transformation into it is the most it's ever felt like a big deal in the context of Death Battle. Final Bison's initial emergence with a tolling bell and the onslaught he lays out on Khan is awesome. Shame he gets folded immediately after. Both evil Ryus are great, as I previously mentioned. Jack the Ripper manages to be super intimidating, with Raiden deactivating his pain inhibitors and going blow for blow with Logan at blinding speeds. Mega Charizard X doesn't get many points for creativity, but it is an awesome sequence that speaks to the bond between Red and Charizard much better than the goated line in the conclusion would have made me expect. Devil Trigger Dante is super short, snappy, and to the point, being even more impactful with how this is the one time Dante drops the jokey attitude to get fully serious after Trish is put in danger. Sweetbot gets a better vehicle transformation than in any Transformers episode, punctuated with Joker getting one of the funniest lines in all of Death Battle. His body language slays me as much as the more normal line delivery. The split screen Megazord and Voltron formation set up the excitement for the battle phenomenally well. I just wish Batman? I just wish MatPat's line was more energized. It sounds so reserved, which deflates the scene just a bit for me. In an episode full of great transformations, Kurama Mode Naruto sticks out to me for how well Don M. Bennett manages to somehow make the Believe It line sound unironically badass. Devil Jin is the weaker Dark Mode transformation of its episode, but it's still very imposing with the effect and how it immediately puts Ryu on the back foot. Roshi vs Jiraiya excels with the strategy-based combat these two are known for, a category where both are able to hold their own with each other. But Roshi's buff mode transformation shows well that Jiraiya can't keep up with his sheer power thanks to how easily he lifts and tosses Gamabunta. The get off my lawn line is one of the most underspoken banger jokes in the show. I absolutely adore it. For as standard as most of Captain Marvel vs Shazam is, I gotta give props to Captain Marvel's surprisingly fantastic transformation into Binary. Yeah, the sprites still don't look that good, but they're much better here than they were against 18. And once you get past that, you're left with a really creative use of both characters' toolkits, having Carol absorb the living lightning, fire it back at Shazam, and revert him back to Billy. That, along with her fed up line read and quirky little hand wave, make this an easy standout. All four of Ben 10's alien transformations I think are similarly excellent. They each get an amazing hand drum bit or a very characterful and amusing line, with Grey Matter into Way Big flowing especially well. Twist my arm and force me to pick a singular favourite, I guess I'd go with Way Big for the loser line, but it is a very close race between them. Both Zarathos appearances are a testament to the power of a great line read and how they can enhance a scene that visually isn't anything special and the lead-in isn't anything to write home about. He gets one of the rawest line reads in season 6, which is his weaker one if you can believe it, then returns 6 years later with one of the coldest lines in the entire show. Ganon doesn't count because one per episode, rip bozo. I don't know if I should even count Red Hood taking the venom, but season 7 needed something, man. This scene's good, great acting and sound design that get across what they need to without being able to show it in live action. Pink Mark Steven is great at getting across how Steven has been pushed to his emotional breaking point. The yellow diamonds in Star's eyes being so big and imposing especially helps given his history with one of his lame aunts. Fierce Deity Link is only really hurt by how little he accomplishes before Cloud sets him up for the Omnislash and takes him out. His entrance and looming over Cloud are perfect, no notes. Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black takes an unconventional approach to a Dragon Ball form by making it more characterful rather than flashy, which I think lets it stand out with Zamasu gloating the first chance he gets. Madara letting the black coffin surround him so that he can use the time to summon the Ten Tails and burst out of it is such a power move. Him absorbing the beast and emerging in his cum mode all casually as he drops the meteor with all the effort of you taking a step is such an amazing showing of his character. I don't care what the Purple Aussie man says, no fear only thunder goes hard as hell as a line for Thor succumbing to Wario's madness. You're not supposed to take it literally as him saying my emotion is thunder. It's more like all I feel is the storm coursing throughout my body. This even lets him match Vegeta blow for blow, finally doing something in the fight, and it feels as fast as it should. Super Saiyan God Trunks gets all the sauce out of its episode's transformations. The other two kinda suck, but it's all worth it to see Trunks' sheer aura overpowering the beam that he was previously being pushed back by, and dominating Silver in close quarters. Asta's Devil Union has a really cool entrance of slicing up the building and a funny line where he's as sick of Detroit as I am, followed by one of Michael Kovach's best shouts for the show. Berserker Guts gets the redemption of the century. Turns out when the form actually has a reason to be used, has a suit up that isn't complete blank nothingness, and gets to do more than throw out one attack, it's actually pretty cool. Manhunter turning into a dragon is the sole bit of interesting choreography in its animation. The impact frames of him breaking the surfboard and growing bit by bit as he towers over the shocked surfer are incredible, the slash taking out the moon feels so powerful, and the hand-drawn elements are on point. And closing out the honourable mentions with the same character I opened with, Goku's effortless, calm ascension to Ultra Instinct gets across the gist of the form perfectly. The slow motion as it activates to dodge Superman's punch delivers on the hype, as does the reference to the Jiren fight before the stare down to tell us that the real battle is about to begin. I also don't think these next few count, but I at least want to shout out all of Goku's Kaioken uses, both Sun-Dipped Superman, Alucard turning into my friend Donovan, Deku's full cowling, all of Bill vs Discord, Komagrath's Karmic Overload, Arsene being summoned again as Sataniel, and the unnecessarily smooth shapeshifter the fake guy being revealed as the red one. And that's it for honourable mentions. There's more I could have brought up, but I think cutting it off at about 30 is more than enough. If I haven't mentioned your favourite, then let me know in the comments. I don't think I forgot anything, but there's always the possibility of that. Also, these aren't necessarily the next 30 in line, just the ones that made it on when I went through my shortlist. Doesn't matter either way though, because none of them ever had a chance at the top spot, which should now be obvious.
It's hard to hold this much anger in my body.
Well, here it is. The reason I had to set the 1 slot per episode rule. Bowser vs Eggman is a cut above the rest in most ways, and that includes its transformations, because every single one of them would have had a shot at topping the list. Neo Metal Sonic is such a perfect blend of comedic lead-in with a chance time mishap, and a badass first impression with how he lays Bowser out in one shot after his change tilts the camera and brings forth the fog to drain the colour out of the previously whimsical background. His later Super Horn transformation with the Chaos Emeralds makes one hell of an entrance as he catches the Bowser Bomb which Sage failed to stop with a single hand, drops the funny Super Mario Bros. Z-line, tosses the big turtle up, and knocks him around with ease at blinding speed. Even Dry Bowser, which probably shouldn't count, could have potentially made it onto this list. It's not exactly one of the more effective fake-outs they've ever done, but it excels thanks to how cool it is to see Bowser try to catch the Super Laser Piss to stop it wiping out his army, which leaves them alive to back him up as he reforms, all while Junior disables Eggman's remaining technology. They're all perfect. Yet you'll notice that I've skipped one. The one to really stand above everything else that I already said was my favourite in the episode's standalone review, Fury Bowser. Let's take those 3 criteria I mentioned in the intro one by one. Bowser just got floored by Neo Metal Sonic, taking him out of the fight, which gives Eggman enough confidence to step into the fray himself to start cleaning up any loose ends. Junior sees this and gets concerned, both for his father and the disadvantage that his side is now at. So he brings out the black paint since he needs Fury Bowser's power to get them back in the fight, even if his dad doesn't have as much control of himself in that state. So it naturally comes into play without feeling like something they should have used right from the start. The reveal is next level, having Bowser deliver his iconic Showtime line before he soars above the battlefield in a shot that gets across his sheer scale amazingly. I've said before, but the purple backdrop and orange accents make that initial emerging from the shell so visually striking. And the switch to a 3D model gets across that this massive strength boost now puts Bowser on a completely different plane. And the first impression he leaves? Okay, let's see. Immediately going for an attack on the Death Egg robot, which Metal has to kick out the way so that Eggman doesn't die immediately, then getting launched himself even after activating the black shield that he previously hadn't even needed to use, going for another punch as the track builds up to probably the hardest shot in the series history, incapacitating the Death Egg robot in a single hit, and then raining down spikes from above which Sage can only slow down before Super Neo Metal has to come in to save the day. So Fury Bowser shows up, rocks the shit out of Eggman and his 2 top soldiers in a 3v1, and things only get evened out when Metal brings in the full power of the Chaos Emeralds. That's a perfect entrance, a perfect reveal, and a perfect demonstration of the form's sheer overwhelming power. I think it's safe to say that Fury Bowser is my favourite transformation scene in Death Battle, in frankly a landslide victory. None of the others, as amazing as they are, can even get near it. Not even if I was to include Endosim Iron Man. Absolutely wild that this is still only my 2nd or 3rd favourite part of the fight. How the hell did they manage that? that. And there you go, that's the top 10. I have not written an intro, so I'm completely going off the cuff for this. Hope you enjoyed, and if you want to see a video ranking every single transformation in the series, then Nem's already done that, and I'll link his video in the description. Go show him some support. But yeah, that's about it for this one, so thanks for watching, I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you for whatever video I end up making next. Have a good one.